Welcome to the Process Pod. This is where we dig deep, get curious, and find growth. In other words, this is where we process. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Process Pod. We are back today with another processing session. We are going to get into some things. We're going to share some thoughts and just have some dialogue. So I'm glad that you're here for the ride. We're doing some solo processing today, and I want to talk about something that is pretty close to my heart, something that I have dealt with personally, and something that a lot of women that are close to me have dealt with as well. And it was inspired. It's so funny. I actually had a whole other episode planned for today, but then I was listening to an episode of Go Off Sis, check them out, and they were talking about this concept of the soft life. Now, if you have been on social media at all lately, especially this summer, then you're at least somewhat familiar with the concept of the soft life. And they were talking about it as it relates to Black women, and is the soft life really accessible to Black women? Because we are typically expected to be strong, the backbone of society or whatever you want to call it. But that really got me thinking about this concept that I have termed strong Black woman syndrome. Now, if you are a Black woman, then you probably know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it kind of seems to be in direct opposition with this whole idea of the soft life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the connection or relationship between being soft and being strong, and really look at, do we have to sacrifice one for the other, or is there room for both? I think that there is room for both, but I think that's a pretty nuanced conversation. So we're going to see how far we get today. So to start off, let's dig into the definition of the soft life, right? What is that? What are we actually talking about? Now, I don't know that there is an official definition, but I've kind of come up with one of my own. So the reason that maybe there's not like an official definition is because I think that it has to be individually defined, right? Soft means different things for different people, and it looks different in different people's lives. So while it does need to be individually defined and it's everyone's own unique experience, I think that there are a few defining characteristics or pillars of what would constitute the soft life. So what comes to mind for me when I think about the soft life is three things: ease, gentleness, and convenience. Those things all embody what I feel like it means to be soft and to live a soft life. It is a life of ease, meaning not a ton of struggle or unnecessary tension. It means gentleness, being gentle with yourself and with those around you. I think more so being gentle with yourself and towards yourself. And also convenience, meaning I don't have to get it out the mud all by myself. I don't have to be the only one trying to make anything work. That means that I'm open to outsourcing and accepting help from others and collaboration rather than maybe I don't know, maybe a savior complex. That might be jumping the gun, but anyway, you know what I mean. Convenience, meaning we want things to be easy, meaning that maybe we can take some shortcuts here and there. Maybe there are some life hacks that we're okay with using, or all of that. So those are the three things that I think are a part of the soft life. So gentleness, ease, and convenience. Now, all of that sounds great. It sounds really nice, and there's this whole soft life aesthetic, really embracing the feminine side of things and the softer side of things, and it's all these lush vacations and spa days, and I think about like fuzzy pillows and slippers and soft carpet and iced coffee and all that kind of stuff. This whole soft aesthetic, which it's really nice, right? And it's nice to look at, and in theory it's really nice to have. However, those three things Gentleness, ease, and convenience. Those three things are in direct opposition to the role that Black women occupy in our society today. We are allowed to be anything but soft. So, is the soft life really accessible to us? Is it inclusive? So then I think that brings a whole conversation about, well, who gets to say whether or not we can or can't live the soft life, right? And when we get into the strong Black woman syndrome, which, trust me, we are about to, a part of that work and a part of that work that I do with a lot of Black women that I work with is really in regaining ownership of our life. So, okay, let's talk about what strong Black woman syndrome is, because I think some of this will make more sense when you understand where I'm coming from. All right, so one of the things that is a part of strong Black woman syndrome is it's in the title. It's this pressure to always be strong, quote unquote strong, right? And to talk about being strong, then we have to get into a definition. Y'all know I like my words and definitions and languages and all of that. So by our standards, by cultural and societal definition of what it means to be strong, it historically has meant the absence of emotion or the absence of expressing emotions, the absence of emotional expression. And that I don't think is a realistic ask of anyone because we are all human beings. We all have emotions. We all react and respond to things. And why shouldn't we be allowed to show it? But particularly in the Black community as a whole, that is something that we are all kind of unlearning. And so we're speaking specifically in the context of Black women here, but I think it's only fair to acknowledge that a lot of the things that are involved in this, in strong Black woman syndrome, also apply to the Black community as a whole, right? But it's a specific experience for Black women especially. We are viewed in a certain light in society, and that adds a certain kind of pressure about how we are allowed to show up, how we are allowed to present, how palatable we can be to other people, which forms are we allowed to show up that will be acceptable. So there's this pressure to always be strong, and this is where I think it gets into Black women versus Black people, because for Black women, there is also at the same time an expectation and an obligation to be self-sacrificing and to put the needs of everyone else before yourself. We have seen over and over again in current events and in social events that Black women are advocates for so many disenfranchised groups. And while we advocate for so many others, we don't really get the reciprocation. And I think it's maybe starting to change a little bit, but that's because we have had to be our own advocates and call people out and call people to the carpet for being the beneficiary of our advocacy without reciprocating it. And I think that just really plays into the expectation that we shouldn't need anyone to advocate for us. Black women have kind of been painted as, the trope or the stereotype of the angry Black woman. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves, because rarely are we as angry as others paint us out to be or perceive us as. Sometimes we are angry, just like everybody else, because once again, we're human. Sometimes things make us angry. Absolutely. But because of the stereotype, we're not really allowed to show that. And that falls into the need to always be strong, because if we show that we're angry or hurt by something, then we're weak and we're unhinged and too emotional almost. It's exhausting, truly. Honestly and truly, it's exhausting. But there is the pressure to be self-sacrificing and to be everything to everyone else first and primarily and maybe exclusively, being everything to everyone else. And then there's nothing left over for us. I think has been perpetuated a lot in our families and in our households, and for a lot of different reasons. I think that there's a whole lot to go into this conversation, and it's cultural and generational, but self-sacrificing and prioritizing others instead of prioritizing ourselves, not before prioritizing ourselves, but instead of prioritizing ourselves. That is a part of strong Black woman syndrome, so much so that we pride ourselves on being okay and still being able to be successful, even though we are taking care of everyone else and taking care of others rather than taking care of ourselves. This has been perpetuated so much and pushed on us so much that now it's like a source of pride, right? That we don't need anyone, and it's such a catch-22, because it's like, well, you shouldn't need anyone because you have to be strong, and then at the same time, it's okay. Well, I'm taking care of other people, so I don't need anybody. I don't know that one. Anyway, that one got away from me, but you know what I mean. All right, so we've got the self-sacrificing, we've got the pressure to always be strong, and then third is having a ridiculously high expectation of ourselves. Ridiculously high expectations, and that's not only in the realm of achievements, like personal and professional achievements, but that's also in our expectations about how we should be able to show up in relationships, how we should be able to show up for other people. It absolutely also does have to do with productivity and accomplishments. But the expectations that we have of ourselves is to be able to carry the burden of everyone else flawlessly and without. It's like I don't know, man. We've bought into what's the word that I'm looking for? Because it's more than just a stereotype. I keep coming back to the word trope. Like, we've bought into the trope almost of the strong Black woman, or of the angry Black woman, or whatever it might be. But now we have these expectations of ourselves that we should be high achieving with no emotional expressiveness. And again, that don't sit right with me anymore. And I say anymore because I absolutely have suffered from strong Black woman syndrome, and probably still have some residual effects of it. I think I likely always will. Being a Black woman, especially being a Black woman in America, is such a unique experience, and that's why the conversation about community is so important, because we maybe don't have the allyship or the advocacy of other groups. It's that much more important that we show up for one another in those ways. So we have these expectations of ourselves to be perfect, essentially. It's the perfectionism. Maybe I think that's a better way of putting it. It's more than just having high expectations. We struggle a lot with perfectionism and really feeling like we should be able to, that we should be able to take anything, or that we should be able to have the answers for everything. It's when you're in a new situation. Let's say that you got a brand new job or something and you're still figuring it out, and we beat ourselves up for not having the answers on like day 3 of being on the job because we expect ourselves to be perfect. The perfectionism really, we carry it like a dark cloud. It follows us like a dark cloud, I think, because we are expected to be perfect and to not need anyone and to not show any signs of quote unquote weakness, which is really just emotion or vulnerability. We're not really allowed to show those things. And then at the same time, there's this whole push for femininity and embracing the feminine side of things. Well, we have to really work through a lot of our conditioning that has been focused on the opposite of that. It's been focused on the opposite. It's I don't know. I kind of feel like we haven't really been allowed to embrace our femininity in the ways that other groups of women have. And so by not having permission to embrace the feminine side of things, the alternative is maybe to embrace the masculine. So it's like that's the box that we kind of have been put in, and so now we find ourselves there, and it's not as comfortable as it used to be. It's not as comfortable as it used to be. All right, so we struggle with perfectionism as well. And I think part of the reason that the perfectionism plagues us so much is because we're not allowed to need help. We're not allowed to ask for support or to accept it. And when I say we're not allowed, I know that sounds like someone is telling us, "Hey, don't ask for help," and part of that is pressure that I think we've felt from society, and then a lot of that is also self-imposed. It's our conditioning kind of develops into our own beliefs about ourselves. And it's our own beliefs about ourselves that we have to dismantle and unlearn and relearn. And so that's the process I think that a lot of us are going through right now. And one of the reasons I think that it's been so hard is because we feel like we either can be soft or strong. Like they're mutually exclusive. Like there's not strength in softness, right? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But we're not really we're not one to ask for help and we're not really one to accept help. That's a hard one. That's something that I'm struggling with even now, is asking for and accepting help. There is an internal process that has to take place before you can even get to the point where you acknowledge to yourself, let alone to someone else, that I am not able to execute this thing at the highest level on my own. And for some of us, when we come to that realization, it really messes with our sense of self and identity. And I think especially as Black women, because our identity, we have been defined so much by being able to do so many things for so many people all at the same time without breaking a sweat. So then when there's something that we can't do, that's really closely tied to our identity, and it kind of shatters a lot of that. It directly challenges our beliefs about ourselves, which maybe is why we hold on so much to that perfectionism. Because if I'm not this person who can do things so easily and who can do them well the first time, and who can do them well the first time without asking, without support, without direction, without guidance, without help, if I'm not that person, then who am I? Then who am I? And these are really big existential questions that we have to deal with just because we can't do something perfectly. I know that Black women are not the only groups of people that deal with this, but this is the experience that I'm most familiar with. And so this is the one that I'm speaking from. But if you can relate to this and you're not a Black woman, then that's wonderful. Let us know. Matter of fact, let me know if you can relate to this and you're not a Black woman. I think that would really help maybe. I think that it can be kind of an isolating experience. And even though you may not be able to identify specifically with the experience, there are parts of it that I know can overlap. Lots of different people struggle with perfectionism. I know that's not an experience that is specific to the Black community or to Black women. And I think that it shows up, it shows up in a unique way in Black women specifically. I think that has to do with the role that we historically play in our families and in our relationships. There is a lot of responsibility that is placed on us. And sometimes in our families or in our relationships in our lives, it's like the buck stops with us. So if the buck stops with us, and if we're the authority or if we're the matriarch, then we are supposed to have all the answers, and we are supposed to handle everything that falls in our lap, and we are supposed to be able to handle it by ourselves. So it really shakes you up a little bit when you can't. Because not only do we have to come face to face with the fact that we are not perfect, but we also have to deal with potentially disappointing other people. For some of us, when we do accomplish things, our families are very proud of us. And when your family is proud of you, and when the people in your life are proud of you, they want to tell everyone how well you're doing, and they, want to kind of, show you off and all of that. And the support is always there when you're doing well. And maybe as a community and as a society, we need to do better about supporting people when we're not doing well. That is one of the reasons I think we are afraid of failure so much. I think that's one of the reasons that the perfectionism plagues us so much, because if we're not perfect, if we don't do this well, if I don't do this well enough for so and so to be proud and to tell the bingo group, if I'm not achieving at that level, then they'll be disappointed in me. And perfectionism and people pleasing, they are two peas in the same pod. They go hand in hand. And the thought of disappointing the people in our lives is paralyzing. It is paralyzing, even when it comes down to disappointing them by the decisions that I'm making for my own life, not even for theirs. It's paralyzing is the best word. That's the only one that keeps coming to mind. So the people pleasing and the perfectionism are are definitely part of the backbone of strong Black woman syndrome. Again, I know that we're not the only ones that deal with it, but in this context, this is how it shows up for us. So, I mean, these kind of concepts, it just kind of goes on and on. These are all the other things that we deal with. So like, we're expected to be able to show up and support other people all the time, even if and when we're not being supported. We are always expected to keep going and keep pushing, even when things get hard, and we're supposed to do it with a smile on our face and all of that, right? And then on top of that, we are not allowed to celebrate ourselves. Because if I celebrate myself, then I'm arrogant. Excuse me? No, because I've been working so hard over here by myself, might I add, because I'm too scared and not allowed to ask for help. I've been working so hard by myself, and now I have this accomplishment. I should be able to celebrate that. I should be able to say, hey, look what I did. Yes, I'm proud of myself. And yes, I did that and did. I should be able to say all of that without being, I want to say without being perceived as cocky or arrogant, but other people's perception is their own, and it's really not my responsibility. I should be able to do that without criticism. Everybody else does. We throw parties for the smallest little thing, but we're not really given the space to celebrate ourselves, or historically we haven't been. I think that's something else that's also changing, and I'm so glad that that's changing, because we need to be able to celebrate ourselves. Oh my goodness, we really, really need to. Yeah. We're not really given the space to do that, which is wild to me, because we are expected to do so much all of the time, and then we're not supposed to be proud of ourselves for doing it. Excuse me? And all of these things just really make me think about, like, well, what are we here for? Like, we're not just here for other people. We're not just here to serve other people. Sure, that's a part of what we're here to do. I think as people, as human beings, that's what we're here to do. You know, like as a child of God, that's what we're supposed to do is serve other people, right? But that is not all that we're here to do. I'm also here to serve myself. Especially because while I'm busy serving other people, ain't nobody really serving me, you know? Not in the same ways, at least. So the strong Black woman syndrome is one that every Black woman that I have ever come across has dealt with in one way or another. It is both heartbreaking and empowering to work with Black women in the therapeutic space and to give one another permission to feel, and permission to fall, and permission to hurt, and permission to cry, and permission to ask for help, permission to accept help. That's the big one. It's one thing to ask for help. It's another to actually accept it and allow someone to help you, to allow someone to come into your space and to be a part of what you're doing. That is so hard for us. That's one of the most rewarding parts of the work that I do. And I know y'all hear me talking about self-compassion a lot. And the reason that I'm so passionate about it is because of how I have seen it transform my life. And it is in these ways that I'm talking about now, because it has really helped me to kind of liberate myself from some of the expectations that are placed on me as a Black woman. And so that's part of why I'm so passionate about self-compassion, because I think that it is the remedy to self-critique, and that is the undertone of strong black woman syndrome. It's critique and it is criticism from others and especially from ourselves. So, doing that work to challenge that voice and to replace it with a compassionate one, doing that work to get to a place where you actually believe that you deserve the same grace and compassion and kindness and gentleness that we so freely give everyone else, getting to that place is one of the most liberating, it has been one of the most liberating experiences of my life. And it's such a powerful one. So in this whole conversation about the soft life and can you be soft and strong at the same time, I think for black women that question really hits differently. And this is the work that we have to dismantle in order to make room for the soft things in life. Now, the hard part in embracing that is feeling like, well, if I'm soft, and I can no longer be strong. And that's the biggest myth. That's the myth that we're here to bust today, folks, because you can be strong and soft. Matter of fact, I think that there is great strength in softness, especially as it relates to embracing and expressing vulnerability. It takes a very strong person to be able to do that because it's a real scary thing. Some of y'all cringe at the word vulnerable, at the word vulnerability. It's almost like that has become the badge of honor now, to not want to talk about vulnerable things and like, oh yeah, no, I don't really show my feelings. I don't really, okay, sis, are you okay? Like, you know? And I know we have to be selective with who we can share certain things with, but even if it's just acknowledging the vulnerabilities to yourself, we have to be able to do that in order to embrace the soft life, in order to reap the benefits of the soft life. I mean, listen, living a life of ease and convenience and gentleness and even luxury, that sounds great. Why can't I have it? Excuse me? Why? I work hard and always have. So I should be able to have these things too, right? So while we are busy running around holding space for other people and making it safe enough for others to share their vulnerabilities, why don't we deserve the same thing? Why can we not do the same thing, have the same things, benefit from the same things? We absolutely can. And so this is the part where I say that we have to dismantle our own beliefs about ourselves. Because whenever I talk to people about perfectionism and why we feel so horrible when something isn't perfect, a lot of the times it comes down to because I should be able to do better. And we have different sets of expectations for ourselves than we do for other people. But at the root of it, why don't you deserve the same things that you give others? Is it not valuable? If it wasn't valuable, then you wouldn't be offering it to other people. So it is. And it's hard sometimes when other people are not offering the same thing to us. So we got to get it ourselves, which is nothing new to us, nothing new at all, getting it ourselves. But in this space, this is work that we have to do on our own. Believing that we deserve these same spaces that we work really hard to hold for other people, you know. The other thing is that it takes a great amount of strength to protect your peace. Now, let me tell you, once you get to a peaceful place, whether that is in your home or in your room or in your car, that's just a physical space, right? And that's only one part of it. But when you feel at peace, that experience is one that is so valuable. And when you experience peace for the first time or in new ways, you become real protective of it. And the way to enforce that protection, I think, takes a great amount of strength, because that includes enforcing your boundaries, saying no to different people and things, saying, no, I cannot take on this extra task, or no, I will not take on this extra task. And that's hard. We know it's hard because we haven't done it before. So getting to a place where you are willing to protect your peace in those ways takes a whole lot of strength. And protecting your peace in those ways and saying no to certain things and accepting help or being or welcoming collaboration so that it's not all on you, that contributes to your peace as well. Prioritizing your self-care contributes to your peace. And that's tough because that takes some discipline. That takes a lot of discipline and consistency. And all those things are hard. So there's a lot of strength in that. There's a lot of strength in staying committed to yourself in these ways. And in staying committed to yourself in these ways, that's how we create room for ease and gentleness and convenience. So I think that you have to be strong to be soft. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. In order to really embrace and have ownership over the soft life and really be intentional about it and saying, no, I'm choosing to live this way. I'm choosing to live this way because it's more enjoyable for me. And that in itself, the concept of living an enjoyable life is one that is pretty foreign to us. I think sometimes we feel like if things are like enjoyable or if there's no struggle, then we're doing something wrong. We have to go find another project. Maybe we're not being productive enough, but absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why shouldn't we be able to enjoy our life? Otherwise, what are we working so hard for, girl, if we can't enjoy it? What are we working so hard for? So whatever that means or looks like for you, because again, it looks different for different people. Ease and gentleness and convenience looks different for me than it might look for you or for the next person. And that's okay too. But I think it's all about auditing your life and trying to, and figuring out what that looks like for you. What would a life of ease, your ideal life of ease, what would that look like? Would that look like taking some things off of your plate? Would that look like turning some things down? Would that look like taking things off of your plate to make room for other things to put on your plate? What does that mean? What does that mean? And even in that kind of definition of what it means for you, I think that there's a certain, process of self-exploration that's involved in all of that. Because these are questions that we haven't really had permission to ask ourselves before. It almost feels kind of taboo even talking about it. It's like, what do you mean? Life is never easy. Life is not supposed to be easy. And here's the thing. Life still won't be easy even if you are living a soft life, even if you are trying to live more of a soft life, whatever that looks like for you within your circumstances, within your means. Life is still going to be hard. And that's why I think it's so important that we try to make space for these things, because life is going to keep lifing. Let me tell you one thing about life, it's going to keep lifing. And it's always going to be hard. There's always going to be struggle. There's never going to be a shortage of struggle. So why do we try so hard to hold on to the struggles that we have now when there maybe is another way? When maybe we don't have to, when maybe we can opt out. Since life is always going to be so hard, I'm going to opt out of the struggles that I can opt out of, because I know that there are others that I simply can't. And that's fine. And I will face those head on, because I know that's a part of life. But coming to a place where I can say, hey, listen, there are certain things that I'm now choosing to opt out of because they're not serving me, because I think that I would have a more enjoyable life without them. I think that's a really powerful statement. That's a really empowering approach, I think. We really have to shift this conversation, y'all. We really, really do. We have to redefine strong and soft. And I think we have to expand the conversation to understand that there is room for both. The whole soft life aesthetic it's been real cute, but it's like I'm watching it from a distance, It's like, well, what does that look like for me? What does that mean for me? Especially depending on what your life looks like, what's your living situation, what's your work situation. Do you live alone, and are you solely responsible for all of the bills and for everything else? Well, if that's the case, then you can only take so many things off of your plate. So then in that context, what does it mean to live the soft life? I'm not about to quit my job tomorrow because these bills still got to be paid, so I can only have so much ease and convenience. But within the context of what I have going on, within the context of the absolute necessities in my life, where can I make room for some ease and for some gentleness, even if the gentleness just means in how I speak to myself, even if that just means in adjusting the expectations that I have for myself, even if that means accepting the fact that I'm not perfect and embracing the fact that I'm not perfect. Maybe that's where we start with the soft life. whatever it looks like, it should be accessible to everyone because we deserve it. Honestly, as the most criticized group in society, we absolutely deserve some ease and gentleness and convenience because we are tired, okay? We are tired. And the thing is, we gonna still be tired, because the world gonna keep turning. And I think that as a society and as a culture, we still have a long ways to go. So we're still gonna be tired. And also because the world is a dumpster fire right now. So it's hard. It's simply hard. And that's okay. And we know that. But I think because of that, it's that much more important to prioritize ourselves in this way and to find room for the softer things wherever we can, for however long we can. Maybe some of it isn't, sustainable long term. Maybe some of it is, but that's okay too. We do not have to perfectly execute the soft life. That's the other thing, because if you're anything like me, then I'm going to think about, okay, so what does that look like for me? What are the things that I have to do? Like, okay, how do I plan for that? How do I set that up so that when this moves, this don't fall, and when this, and just overthinking it and trying to make sure that we have the perfect way to execute. Sis, that is counterproductive in this space, I think. We really have to manually break free from the symptoms of strong Black woman syndrome. We need some coping skills. We need some healing. We absolutely need some healing from that. So I think the takeaway here is that there is strength in being soft. There is strength in acknowledging and tending to your own needs. And there is no shame in enjoying the softer things in life. None at all. So if you are listening and you happen to be a Black woman, sis, I see you and I love you, and it's okay. And you can be soft and you can put some things down and you will still be strong. That's it. I know that that's the fear. And if you don't know who you are without those things, then maybe this is your sign to start figuring it out and to start getting familiar with who you are at the end of the day. Okay? All right. That's all I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening to this. If you have time, if you are so moved, go ahead and drop a rating and or a review. It is much appreciated. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Process Pod. If you want to keep the conversation going, submit questions or episode ideas, make sure to follow us on Instagram at @the_process pod. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.